good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world today. My name's Kira, and I will be your host today. My pronouns are she, her, and I will be hosting you for this members class, Continuum of Movement, Practices for Transformation with Dr. Amber Elizabeth Gray. I'm joining you from the traditional, unceded, and ongoing territory of the Syilx Okanagan people, also known as West Kelowna, BC, Canada. As our community gathers from various corners of the globe today, we would like to acknowledge that the land we live and work on is the traditional territory of many Indigenous peoples, and we respectfully honor their people, their cultures, and their traditions. So I'm just going to spotlight Amber and introduce her for you. So Dr. Amber Elizabeth Gray is equally an artist, activist, and therapist. Her work for the last 25 years with survivors of torture, war, political violence, and long-term oppression integrates dance, movement, and somatic arts, as well as psychotherapies, polyvagal therapy, and a lifetime of immersion in ancient medicine practices. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Amber.
Thank you, Kira, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm looking, everybody's got their camera off, so I'm going to imagine what you all look like. It's just nice to say hi for a minute. I totally invite you to turn your camera off, especially when we're doing practices. Oh, good. Thank you. Like, I just want to, and I get it. I often have my camera off. Yay. Just to see your face. This is, as I keep looking at your lovely faces, I'll just start by saying this is going to be a very experiential class. I don't know if any of you have been at some of my classes before. I often weave theory in. We're going to be really dropping into a movement practice that traverses movement and dance and stillness and contemplative practice. It's called Continuum. And what I'm going to share in our time together is what I call continuum snippets to support trauma transformation. Transformation is such a massive word. Transformation takes time. So it's not like instant transformation, but practices that have really helped in my work. Another way to say it is the ways I've adapted continuum to work with survivors of trauma. Yeah. So with that, thank you all for letting me see your faces. We're actually going to begin with a landing practice, as I always do. So you're always welcome to turn your camera off when we're doing practices. What I'll say about continuum is you will, what I'll say about how we're going to move today, because we're going to be working with other movement influences as well. You may find that at the end of the day, you've moved a little bit. You might find that you've moved a lot. This is a practice where we allow any kind of movements that we do to be supported by smaller intrinsic movements, those little voices that are often squashed and silenced by privileging bigger movements and by the fact that most of us, irregardless of trauma, have to pattern our movements according to society's demands, right? And then there are layers of oppression and all the things that we might be experiencing. So if at any time you suddenly feel like you want to get up and move big, even if that's not the practice per se, go for it. This is all about your organic, natural movement. It's all about listening to how you want to move and allowing that. So with that, and I'll deconstruct that a little more as we go, what I'm going to invite everybody to do first is to notice how physically comfortable you are. I start just about, I think I start every movement session of any sort with this. Just notice for a moment your physical comfort. And we're going to tend to that. We're going to tend to our physical comfort as an opening. What might support you in this moment to be a little bit more or a lot more physically comfortable? We can make internal and external adjustments because we get cues from both the environment. So you might be like, I don't like this chair. I want to be on the floor. I know you were invited to bring nests, which you're invited to work on at any time. I'm going to stay seated just so that I'm in the screen. You might want more light, less light. You might need to turn the heat on. You might realize that you left your water somewhere and you need to go get it, right? External, internal. We can get cues of tension, pain, places that feel stiff. And we might find, oh, if I just, there I go, lift myself up, find the back of my chair, let both my butt cheeks drop equally, take a breath, more physical comfort. So just tend to that for another few moments. Whatever promotes your physical comfort. And this is a neuroceptive exercise. It's a neural exercise in polyvagal terms, but it's actually, I call it, it's neuroceptive repair. If our neuroception is not functioning as it usually does because of increased stress or fear or whatever, this brings it back online, or it moves it back in that direction. I never promise anything happens like that. So shifting towards more physical comfort, inviting your body to find a little more ease. Then I'm going to invite you to notice your body, however you know your body. This amazing orchestration of so much movement. The body is a sea change of constant movement and rhythm that we might know as breath or heartbeat. We might know as the way that we gesture, the way we dance, the way we walk, when our heart breaks, when our heart opens. So all the movement that is our body. So find your body, meet your body this morning. Do you tend to go inward and find physical sensation and kind of sense, oh, a little hungry, need to shift a little bit more, I'm not quite comfortable there? Do you see your body from the outside? You're actually looking at yourself, being the observed and the observer. Or do you know your body by your edges? How do you sense or find or meet your body? And as you do this during this practice, as much stillness or as much movement as naturally evolves, that's you expressing you. So allow it. There is no one way to do any of the things we're going to share today. Notice that your body is seated or rested or settled or laying down. I can't see the shape of everybody, but maybe bring your attention to your edges, however you were meeting your body before. Just notice your edges, and that some of you might be meeting the air and some might be meeting a chair or a couch. Some part of you might be meeting floor, and just notice that. Notice where your flesh makes contact with something else that's assumably supporting you right now, holding you. And notice your breath. Just notice yourself breathing. There's no particular way that you need to breathe. Your body knows how to breathe you. Perhaps notice breath as an exchange between your body, internal, your environment, external. It's a constant exchange. Each one of us with a unique breathing signature in our own lifetime. It's one of those rhythms. And then we're going to just play with breath in a way that I'll deconstruct later. So what I'm going to invite you to do, if you can, if you've got a plugged nose or something, you can breathe through your mouth, but this is a nose breathing practice. It's just going to slightly shift your breath. And I'm going to invite you, before we start it, just to notice how you feel right now. We just did that shifting towards comfort. We found our bodies, and just kind of notice how you are this morning, how you sense, how you feel. the sensations in your body, the things you might be thinking or feeling. And then I'm going to invite you to rest your lips together and just to begin to inhale and exhale through your nose. That's the only change we're making for now. And just see if that's comfortable. It's not a tight, my mouth is really tight. It's just rest your lips together. And notice your inhale and notice your exhale. And then we're going to play with the exhale. So what I'm going to invite you to do is to soften your glottis and soften your vocal cords. Just the imagination is so powerful. Just let them soften. And if you ever fogged a window as a little kid, like that, mouth closed, you're going to imagine that on the exhale, you're fogging the back of your throat. Soft glottis, soft throat, soft vocal cords. Fogging and maybe softening even more the back of your throat. I often begin to experience my exhale when I do this practice, which is called the lunar breath, as a soft, misty waterfall that's moistening my throat and going down through the cavities in my chest. And I'm going to invite you, we're just going to be here for a few minutes to breathe in this way. And as much as is comfortable, sending it down through that soft throat into your chest. You may only go to the top of your sternum. You may go to the bottom. Send it as far as it will go. And with each exhale, notice, does it go farther or does it retract a little? And just invite your body to receive this exhale, this softening. If at any point this gets uncomfortable, pause it. Do whatever helps you ground or regulate or stabilize, whatever word you want to use. But if you can stay with this, what we do is we start to go into a pattern, but it's our own unique pattern. Do a few lunars and then pause so that you're just breathing in your old, regular, perfectly wonderful way. And notice what arises. And you may notice total stillness, but an increased awareness of physical sensation. I'm actually bending backwards very, very slowly. I'm noticing like this wave in my body. We're actually activating the fluid body. We're waking up the fluid body. We are 70 to 80% salt water, just like our Earth Mother. So you do a few lunars, and a few might be 2 or it might be 20. Honor your own rhythm with this. And then you pause. It's like a call and response. And the response is whatever your body has been initiated into. What does it feel like doing? We often think of dance as a particular choreography. When we honor the tiny little micro movements that might emerge, pulsations, waves, undulations, twitches, and we allow them to continue to express. As I said, we're giving voice to the smaller movements that are always part of us, but really get kind of squashed and silenced by the demands of life. And trauma is a whole other layer. We're waking up tonic muscles. We're waking up connective tissue, fascia. So keep going, a few lunars, and then letting yourself move as big or as small as you move. And if a voice says, oh, don't do that, that's weird. Because we're very conditioned to move very functionally, unless we're actually sometimes performing or dancing socially or in yoga class. Then we get conditioned to move in certain ways. Sometimes these little movements feel sensual because we are in touch with our senses. We wake something up, and a voice will say, don't do that. You're not supposed to wiggle when you're sitting in your chair. See if you can ignore that voice. In each one of our functional movements is the organismic pulsation of an amoeba, the little flitting movements of a paramecium, right? The crawling of a sea slug, the slithering belly on earth of a serpent, the tail moving freely in the ocean of a fish or a dolphin. So all of those movements are our pathway to human movement. So we're actually inviting a reconnection, a reacquaintance with some of the more primary ways we can move beneath our conditioning and beneath the constraints of our patterning. If you suddenly feel I need to stand up and move more, I need to get on the floor and rest. In that open attention space, we sometimes suddenly kind of go into a rest place. Allow that. Rest, sleep, stillness is movement. And wherever you are in this practice, exploring the lunars or this space we call open attention, which is the response, shift into open attention and then begin to find a way to bring this practice to a pause. Begin to find a way. Don't just go, oh, she said stop, I'm going to stop, right? That's one of those impositions on how we move. Life does it all the time. Trauma is a very significant imposition. We lose our beat, we lose our flow. We'll just take about a minute to bring this to a pause. When you find your pause, notice for a moment if your breath has shifted. Notice if you feel any different. We had that little check-in before we played with the lunars. Just notice if you're more or less aware of sensation or feeling or thinking. If you're more or less comfortable. And again, just finding your own natural pause. We will return to playing with that. So before I'm going to say a little bit more about continuum and lunars, but I just want to do a quick check-in and we'll just see if there's two people I tend to just pause periodically to check in. Does anybody want to just share how you experience that? And we're only going to do 2. I'm just being clear about that up front because of time. I think that was Kay. Go for it. If you can, I don't know, do we need to unmute you or?
Muted.
Okay,
Yes.
we can hear you.
To begin with, it was an awesome experience, but I have to say that I have the space that is set up for it. I had my mat on the floor, I had my things around.
Mm-hmm.
What I noticed mostly is that there's something scared to explore those new spaces, you know? It's as if something wrong is going to happen.
Mm.
I'm trying to be there for it, but sometimes it's the split attention between being there for the feeling and being there for my body that needs to find it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And, I think any somatic or embodied practice, right? We're getting into the terrain of reality, right? What lives here, what's accumulated here, what's going on for us today. One thing I'll say, if anyone has ever done continuum, and I'm going to do a hand raise in a moment, but not now about that. It's a practice that's usually done, I call it elaboration. Most classes are like a 3-hour class. And, people and gather and we spend a lot of time. And frankly, and the way that I've learned it and often happens is usually not appropriate for trauma, since that's part of a context that we're here. Because it's too much. It's also a very privileged context because you have to be able to get to a studio with a teacher. So one of the things I always say is, titration, which of course, anybody who knows somatic experiencing, that's a very common concept in that, but it literally, it means breaking things down into manageable bits. So yes. And I will say, we're going to explore a couple different continuum breaths or sounds. There will be some that our body might go, oh, yeah. And some our body will go, oh yeah. Right. So pay attention to that. But yeah, thank you for your honesty. Okay. Is there one other person who wants to share? Okay. Are there any chat shares? And compassion? Yeah. Thank you. Really strong self-recognition and compassion. So much it was challenging to fully accept. Okay, Sarah, you have your hand. We can only do one. So Sarah Harvey, go ahead, please. Hi.
Hello. Thank you for doing this work. So I do a lot of like dance flowy stuff at home, but it's always usually in private because of those social stigmatizations around moving the body and feeling self-conscious, and exactly what you said about feeling weird. Luckily, I've been doing what I call stim dancing for a few years. I'm autistic, and many autistics will rock and flap and will generate these movements, and I put it into dance. So to see you kind of weaving this together is very nice. It's very freeing. When I'm doing it, because of that practice, it does take a while to overcome that inner voice, which is basically what you said about those social shapings of how to move the body and how not to move the body. But when you can tap into it, it really helps me just co-align with my center, my core, and helps regulate the nervous system. So it'd be nice if these things were practiced more. A lot of conventional dance classes are trying to keep in step with people rather than following their own flow.
Yes.
And your own flow would be lovely to be taught more widely.
Oh, I love that you just said that. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that what Sarah just said is such a beautiful segue into what I do want to share a little about continuum, just because, going back and forth with the Embody Lab and Scott and what I might share today, I was like, I want to do something just a little bit experiential and wild. So I want to say a little bit about that. The lunar breath is one of, I don't know how many breaths or sounds we work with in continuum. There are so many and they keep changing, but let me just, I'm actually going to go into gallery view. What I'd like people to do is, if you've ever done continuum before, to do your yellow hand raise. Just do the little yellow hand so I can see if anyone's done it. Okay, so there's a few of you who've done it, and then I guess you can get rid of the hands. If you've ever heard of continuum, please do the little hand raise. We'll see if it's more or less people. Okay, yeah, or you can do a real hand raise. I never could find the yellow thing. Cool. So a few of you have heard of it. Okay. So let me just give a little context, and it'll be brief. Today is really a brief touch-in, like it's a tapas tasting of this work. Emily Conrad is the person who birthed continuum. And again, there's some of my influences in today's class, but I'm really honoring this body of work. And to make a very, if you're interested in the long story, read her book, Life on Land by Emily Conrad, if you want to know more about it. She was a very traumatized young woman when this work started to come to her. She had an extremely, extremely difficult, oppressed childhood, lots of physical illness, lots of 2 suicide attempts. She didn't want to be here. Intergenerational trauma. She's a Jewish woman whose family had come over, because of persecution in Europe, family trauma. So dance was her, I like to say dance was her salvation. She found dance. And she talks about this. And she ended up moving into Haitian dance. Catherine Dunham, modern dance, Dunham technique. She went from vaudeville to modern Dunham technique, Haitian dance, and ended up in Haiti. And her deep explorations and immersion in the sacred dance forms there, she recognized something that universal in movement. And she became super curious about, what is it that moves all of us? How do we all connect? What's the essence, the depth of movement? And of course, movement is, I wiggle my finger, I scratch my nose, or it's even, I feel a little twitch inside. You don't even see me move. And it's also mass migration, right? It's all of that. It's everything in between. And what she recognized was wave motion, right? Wave motion as a fundamental principle, practice, presence of movement. She'd often say the wave is the message and the messenger, right? Sound waves move in water. So if you've ever were a kid and you got under the bathtub and went, you hear, I still do it. If I can get in water. So she started to play with wave motion. And as I said, she recognized the human body is mostly fluid, and we tend to, we're very fleshy and solid, and we tend to, fetch wood, carry water. We tend to move in ways that are functional, and that's great. We need to, and we also can move creatively. And we also get stuck in patterns, and we have some movement patterns that we need and some that may not be of service, especially if they're society's demands on us, fear, stress, trauma. So she started to explore wave motion as that which can remove constraints. She would spend hours exploring, hence our tendency in this practice to spend hours exploring. I've worked for 25 years with survivors of political torture, war, genocide. We, because I work in the context of mental health, didn't have those hours, but they also couldn't tolerate it. This kind of, and you just had a taste of it. And I should say one thing, when I started doing continuum, it was for me. It was my self-care practice. It was this precious little place I never talked about. Then I found out that it was really helpful for my clients who often didn't want to necessarily dance, because I'm a dance therapist. And, dance therapy, if you take a breath and you're mindful about it, that's part of a dance. So, but I found ways to integrate this into all the ways I work with dance and movement in this context. And that's what I'm attempting to share today. So it's little snippets of how different continuum waves help I don't like the word release, deconstruct some of the constraints that trauma can create in our body. That's what I'm doing today. So we work with breath, and we work with breath made audible, which is sound, right? Breath inspires movement, movement inspires dance, breath and movement are on a continuum. Breath and sound are on a continuum. Breath made audible is sound. Sound and movement are on a continuum. You can hear a hummingbird's wings, right? The movement is such that you can hear the sound. So we make a lot of sounds, and we're going to do a couple sounding practices and work with them in our body. How I see what we're doing today is exploring how sound, movement, breath can offer our body new neural pathways, new ways to shape our movement or to find the buoyancy, the flow beneath how we move. Like we're reshaping ourselves momentarily to invite depatterning and repatterning, interruption of unhelpful patterns and possibilities for new patterns. That's what we're doing. I often say we're going to incite the fluid body to support the physicality of us, the muscle of us, and the nervous system, particularly the autonomic nervous system, to find new ways. I'm going to pause and see if there's, and we'll just do two at a time, 2 comments or questions about what I said. I definitely recommend the book and the Continuum Teachers Association, CTA, the Continuum Teachers Association. Kay, you have a question. You can check some of the work out there. Go ahead, Kay.
Yes, thank you very much. You just mentioned working with the survivors of political trauma.
Yes.
And what you said is very accurate, especially in my case. For example, I'm from Syria originally. It took me about 2 to 3 years to actually start being able to access my body.
Yeah.
It took time. So I would appreciate any tips because I anticipate having some clients with similar paths. So yeah, maybe how we can approach those deep health traumas.
Yeah. You know what? You just said it, Kay. Take time. I mean, one of the things that I say about working with survivors of war, and I just want to say that Syria is one of my favorite places on earth. I love it there. And I haven't been there since the war. It takes time. And I think I'm going to speak more generally as a dance movement therapist, somatic psychotherapist. I mean, it's a big body of work. And when I teach, I like to say that I teach from all the ways that I made mistakes, which is usually going too fast, doing too much. I chose movement because I've had the privilege of enough safety to keep moving. It requires enough safe as can be, what I call relative safety, right? To be able to move freely and then in space. And space is a metaphor for the environment. So when you and others come from places where literally the environment is giving constant cues of not being safe, that affects our movement. And it takes a while to both disrupt and unravel that, but also to find new ways. So it's really about going slow and working in small ways. I could say a lot more, but because we're only here for an hour and a half, I want to make sure we have time to experience. Did you raise your hand again? Was that a second hand raised?
Okay, now I'm allowed to talk again. Thank you very much for this. I just wanted to add, for people who've been through prison isolation, forced isolation, I feel it's helpful to allow them to reach the imagination of the movement because we have survived this already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the things I'm going to say, so you had about a 10-minute exploration of lunars, which is what I planned. For some of you, that might have been too much. For some of you, it might have been the tiniest sip, and you're like, man, I want to do that for 2 hours. So the practices, it's so important to have enough time to explore it. Today, we're just tasting it. But yes, And what happens, and one of the reasons I love this practice, we can get into the imagination when we have a little bit more time. I know that sometimes I'll suddenly feel myself moving and I'm jellyfish, right? Or I'm something, I'm tree limb, you know, and that creative imaginal space is really potent, and it's very healing in trauma work. I'm just going to check our time. Let me just, okay. So the lunar breaths. So if you've ever had ultrasound, I've had a fair amount of physical therapy in my life, right? So we're talking about something similar to ultrasound. They put sound waves into your body, right? Physical therapists. And when Emily first came home from Haiti and started creating this body of work, and, you know, there's about, I don't know how many of us now in the world, there were about 80 something teachers when she died. We all carry it in our own way. There's not one way to carry it. But her exploration had shifted. Initially, she would use music, you know, which is common, right? You go to a class and you hear music and you feel, but then she's like, that's external. How do we make our own sounds? Like, how do we become our own choreographer? So we make sounds, and every sound has a different wave. So like ultrasound, as we start to explore, we've done the lunar breath and we're going to do O's and E's. I invite you to notice, how does this sound frequency? How does this wave affect my body? What does it make me feel? The 3 sounds I'm sharing today with little mini practices are the ones I use most commonly in my work with survivors of trauma. They're accessible. I work with people from all over the world. Many of them have a reference point for, oh, that's an O sound with a little flair. I like to play with it. Many of them, some people go, that's really weird, but a lot of people go, oh yeah, that's a holy sound, or that's. So I've picked the 3 sounds that are most accessible to my clients, and I'm going to teach you little bits that I invite you to explore on your own later. And what we're doing is we're using the different frequencies, the lunar, you can't hear my lunar, but if I go like this, you can hear a little bit. It's hard because if you start to make the lunar audible, you tend to have to constrict here, kind of like Ujjayi, which is great, but it's just different. It's kind of like the tide receding. Each of these 3 waves we're exploring today has a different intention. We have we do have theories about what the sounds do. I prefer to have you experience it and figure out what it does for yourself before I impose my idea. So I don't know how you all experience the lunars, but what I will share about that sound and why it's probably the one I teach the most is because it tends to be an invitation to the parasympathetic nervous system, the homeostasis-sizing and sociostasis-sizing part of the autonomic nervous system. Emily would say it would invite parasympathetic calm. I think that's a simplified way to talk about its impact. She talked about it as kind of neutralizing separation. And she was actually researched by Dr. Valerie Hunt, who's no longer alive, who was at UCLA. And we now know that we human beings have, you know, the mystics would call it an aura, but we have an energetic field that is measurable. When Emily did the lunars over and over, that would disappear. So it was almost as if it dissolved separation. So I have found it to be something that's really helpful because you can do it and nobody knows you're doing it, right? So yes, Kay, you talked about having a safe space to do. I do it on airplanes. I do it in cars. I do it, you know, to kind of just. Having said that, I had you fill this space here. You can fill your whole body with lunars. It's also expansive. And sometimes that's too much for people, which is why we're going to do a counterpoint sound of O's and E's. Counterpoint means it's a very different frequency. I'm just going to pause. Are there any questions about what I'm saying? A little bit about the lunars. Okay, that is Monica. Hi. Oh, Monica, you're
Yeah. Now, am I unmuted? Yes.
yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. So I heard you say that because when we were doing the lunars, obviously I thought, oh, this is very similar to the Ujjayi breath, right? But then you said no because it constricts. So I'm just wondering if it's more of an expansion of the
Yep.
like letting it expand. Is
Yeah.
that what it is? And
Yeah.
just letting the breath, because it's very subtle, you know, because if we summon like a wave, like Ujjayi is like a wave, like, and so it's very I imagine it's very subtle of a difference.
It is. Ujjayi, the way that I learned Ujjayi, because I also do yoga, is, it's very tonifying. So you can feel more of the muscle tone, whereas lunar is very intentionally melting, deconstructing. That's why I said you soften your glottis, you soften your vocal cords. Emily would say, if you can hear it, you're doing it wrong.
Okay.
My experience, what I say to clients is, I feel an inner tide. You know that sound of the tide pulling back from the shore? That's kind of how I sense this. And it is probably, of all the breaths that we work with, it's the one that invites the most wave motion, not for everybody, and wakes up the fluid body. So for some people, it's the first thing I start with. For some, it might take a while, depending upon how okay it is for them to soften, right? But I'm going to teach you something called lunar pools, which is my trauma adaptation of this. But first, before I do that, Grace, I'm going to ask you I think I have to ask you to unmute. There we go.
Yes, that Monica asked the question but maybe now I got a little confused. You said you got your mouth close to maybe get your mouth close to the microphone and do it one more time.
Yeah. I don't even know where the microphone is on my computer. Where is it in? Did you hear that?
I heard it just right at first, but it's a little sound and expansive, like you were telling Monica.
Yeah, I bet you that was a. Did you hear that?
No, but thank you. I mean, now I was doing Ujjayi breath, and then you went, it's not Ujjayi breath. So, okay, expansive. All right, I think we got it.
Where's the microphone on a Mac? Like, is it on the thing on the?
I think the problem is that Zoom actually muffles out those sounds. So it's difficult with breath work.
Yeah, and there's a Zoom button that lets you make sounds, but where it is, who knows? Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's meant to be inaudible. Like, I'll just share this little snippet though. Emily used to tease me because I can actually, because she felt that if we did them too loud, we started to do something different. I can do lunars. Did you hear that? Yeah, it must be Zoom. Fairly loud, staying soft. And I would often do them. I was a first responder in the Haiti earthquake. I did psychosocial work down there. And I would often do them in spaces and watch the shift in the room. They have they work not only with our own nervous system, with the collective nervous system. They can be very, like, removing the constraints of fear. If we were live, I would let you all come close to me and hear me, but we just can't do that in the Zoom space. So, yeah, if you end up liking this and wanting to explore more, the Continuum Teachers Association, there are teachers, many who do Zoom classes. So you can look it up. So I want to teach what I call a trauma adaptation of the lunars. So the lunars are meant to expand. Exploring space internally or externally can bring up fear. I'm going to speak very simply about very complex things. moving the body through space when we're in fear or terror can be very difficult, very frightening. So understanding the power of the lunars to soften, parasympathetize, help the autonomic nervous system regulate would be a better way to say that. I started playing with something called lunar pools. So what I'm going to invite you to do right now is just to find a place in your body that feels tight or tense. I'm going to go from my left shoulder, like above my shoulder, the I guess it's up here. Is it the traps up here? Like these muscles that get really tight, the top of the trapezius. Just find a place that feels tight. It may or may not correspond directly to something that you identify as trauma, and send some lunars in there. Take a minute. I like to put my hand on the place. That's optional. If our bones can conduct sound. So I often will put my hand on the tight place. While I'm doing the sound, send it through my arms to the place. Sometimes people think that's weird, so they don't want to do it. You're going to identify the place and then pool lunars. Now, what do I mean by that? Like a whirl, like pools, a pool of water. Some people go, what do you mean by pool? Imagine it's a pool of water contained in that place. I often do any place in the body that's a dip, underarms, but choose a place with some constriction and just play with it. Send some lunars in there and pull them around and pause periodically. We'll go for about 5 minutes and see what happens. Just play with it. If you have a question, I'm going to put this back on gallery. If you have a question, by all means, do the yellow hand while we're doing this. Dogs love the lunars. There's a dog right there. Dogs love the lunars. So you're sending the lunar in, and then you're pulling it around in a contained space between two bones or into the muscle body. You can do this anywhere, as long as it's contained. And as always, it's a practice of allowing. So you might lunar the whole 5 minutes, but periodically it's nice to pause and just allow what wants to happen. Take your hand off. Is there any movement? And again, it might be a little ripple. It might be a whole arm raise. Your whole body might want to move. Sometimes we go into asanas, we go into a dance sequence, whatever arises. Can actually be really profound to feel a subtle, like softening in a muscle and just a really tiny movement, because those tiny, tiny movements support all of our bigger movements. And when they're liberated, that's the path to liberation and transformation, right? The little spaces that we pattern over. We're playing here. We're actually playing. I'm going to go a couple more minutes. If you feel done, you can move to another place. As always, if it's not comfortable, pause. Step away, do what you need to do. Resting is always welcome in this practice if you just need to rest. Sometimes I'll drop into that sleep place when you're awake but asleep for like 4 or 5 minutes, and it's incredible. Any new neural pathway we create in any experience, we know that experience can change the brain, and by creating new neural pathways, it doesn't become part of us if we don't rest. We have to rest to integrate it. So and I'm going to again invite you to move into open attention, which is when you're not lunaring, but just letting your body do what it wants to do, whether it's taking a mini nap to a big dynamic movement. And let that open attention, let that movement or stillness find its way to a pause. We'll take about a minute. It's so important. One of the most important things about working with movement in trauma is allowing the transition. Embodied justice is when we allow ourselves to observe our own rhythm. So often the facilitator's voice will be the end of the movement, but that's not our voice, right? So find your own pause. I'm leaving like a minute or so for that. Yes, we have the constraint of our class time, but in that limit. So glad some of you are on your nests. And if you want to keep moving when we gather, please do. I mean, this is often people find, oh my gosh, all of a sudden, my mother at the age of like 86, she never did any, she walked. She went to her first continuum class and she said, I cannot stop moving, right? We were working with little movements and yeah. She's like, wow, I just want to move. So again, I welcome a couple people to check in. I'm going to actually share just a little bit in terms of localizing the lunars. So again, this is going counter to what the lunars are supposed to do. I was sometimes the renegade with Emily and in continuum practice, but working with people who were living with a lot of fear, it was too much to just, even what I had you do for 5 minutes was too much for some people. So pulling them, finding little places. I had you go to a place of physical constraint to keep it contained. But with my clients, if we found a place where fear lived, a place in the gut, a place in the heart that was connected to their trauma, we'd work up to it, but that's where we would pull the lunars. And it might be for 30 seconds, and it might be for 5 minutes, and it might be work up to 10 minutes. I shifted from my shoulder to my sacrum. And the reason I'm sharing this is because it was actually quite profound. There's a lot of profoundness in these little movements. 6 months ago, I had major spine surgery, emergency surgery, because I could no longer walk. I lost the use of my left leg. It worked, but I couldn't. I've had 13 car accidents, didn't cause any. So it was accumulated shearing in my spine. And if anyone here has ever had spinal surgery, the nerve pain is intense and it's like moving anything. I'm 6 months out and the doctors and PTs can't believe how much I can move. I've been doing lunar pulls in my sacrum. I just moved my hand there. And the ability to do this kind of flexion and extension is so much bigger than it should be because of lunar pooling in that area where there's a heck of a lot of nerve pain. Anybody two, and again, I'm just saying two people because so that I can teach you O's and E's, and we're going to do some spinal work, which is another way that I use this. Anybody want to share or ask a question? Just raise your yellow hand or unmute. I want to know if this is landing. Okay. Hello, Eric. Is that, oh, wait, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Your name is covered by, okay. Joanne. Hi. Huh.
Oh, am I unmuted now?
Now
Okay.
you are. Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I just wanted to share, interestingly, it started, I have issues in my left shoulder, so I started there, and like huge amount of heat. Like I was in the pooled area, I was feeling this beautiful radiated heat happening there, and like noticed a huge shift very quickly. And then I've also been struggling with sciatica, which I think is hilarious because I say hilarious because it's manifested since I started the integrated somatic therapy training. So my body is screaming to me to pay attention. And then I just noticed also like a lot of like just energy shifting, temperature changes, like different emotions just coming up. So I just like went with the emotional feelings that were coming up. And then it shifted to my, like, I've been having the more sciatica on the back of my right hip. And like, it feel like an interesting like connection I've never really felt that connection before between whatever's going on in my left shoulder and my right hip. It felt like there's some kind of connection there. Yeah. Again, hit lots and lots of heat again in the left back, the lower back and the left hip. And then also naturally through all of this, sighing like crazy, like my body just sighing and sighing. Yeah, right? Just lots of sighing. And then I noticed even with movements, like for some reason, this happens to me quite a lot. Like I noticed needing to almost move in like a figure 8, like an infinity sign, both my shoulders and my hips.
Yep. That was a lot.
Just wanted to share that.
That happened in that 5 minutes, all of that?
In both like the first practice and the second practice.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Joanne. So a couple things. Yeah. Infinity signs. I play a lot again. And I'm just going to weave in, Erica, you asked a question about starting with subtle versus big movement. And I'm going to connect it to what Joanne is saying. Yes, I'm a dance therapist. I often work with big movement. That's, I did a masterclass about 6 months ago, and we did much more of that. We're just focusing on breath today. So yes. And coming back to what Joanne said, often when I do more dance-like work with the spine, we're going to do some O's and E's in the spine. We're probably not going to get to the dance part of it again this morning or this afternoon, whatever it is for you. But I often, people, circles, spirals, and infinities. Those are the natural movements of the spine. Those are the natural movements of the body. That's I do a whole, oh my goodness, I didn't even know this phone worked. Sorry about that. I do a whole, I don't know how to turn it off. I do a whole body of work, a whole morning. I think we're just going to have to listen to that. I don't know how to turn that off. I work with that a lot. And, sometimes guided, sometimes directed. And people naturally go into those movements. And they're all the ways that the center of the body, which the spine is the backside of the center, but the center of the body will, I think, connects to the various organic shapes and movements of life. That's so funny. That phone hasn't worked for years. So there's so many things, but yes, it's, it's subtle, but profound what can come when we start to, warmth. And yes, shoulders and hips, like when we start to find those connections in the body, again, in the context of working with trauma and the body, those connections are important. So are the emotions. So as a therapist, I'm a therapist. I work in the context of psychotherapy. You all might do that or do something different. Those are all pathways. What are the emotions that arise, right? We might find our way into something that's ready to be felt and released. We may find a connection in the body that we might work. And I might be like, okay, let's send infinity signs between the shoulder and the hips with these lunars and see what opens up. And we might reconnect something. Now, somebody named Zoom user was the next person who had their hand up. And I don't know who that is. Oh, there you are. I'm asking. Oh,
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, my name's whatever. I just wonder, this is great, super interesting. And I wonder at some point, can you talk a little bit about, like I have anxiety and panic disorder. So I have spells of anxiety and, how does it work within the paradigm of what you're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, again, this continuums of movement practice, I'm talking about adaptations to trauma. And I think panic and anxiety are very relevant. Those are often the ways that people express trauma. I'm not saying that that's what it always is or that that's what it is for you. That's part of the expression of it. Anxiety, and so there's not one way. So if I were to say, okay, how would I use continuum with anxiety and panic? I'd want to know more about the context of those. Because kind of what a lot of people might think is, oh, you might want to use the lunars because it calms people down. That can be too much. And frankly, in anxiety and panic, calm is not the place that we go right away, right? I mean, it's so different that it can be more activating to try to do that. So I might use sounds that I consider grounding. We're going to do the O's, which is a very again, I don't like to say what they're supposed to do, but we call them a love song to our biology. They're all the tubular, so that might be a sound that I would use, but it can be.
Yeah. Certainly the trying to calm down during any of that makes everything much worse. It's something that there's something that's being expressed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And shutting it down is not the appropriate response. Right. But making it more comfortable.
Yeah.
Let it express itself is, I think, the way to go.
Yeah. And there's not, it depends upon your body. So I'm not going to teach the sound, but because of your question, I'm going to show you, there's a sound that we call the who breath, right? And this is what it looks like. Right? It's activating. It's a fire breath. That might be helpful in anxiety, but it might not. The other thing that might be helpful is what we're going to do next. And I'm going to invite everybody to observe what I'm doing because I want to make sure we get to this. I'm going to inhale, and on the exhale, I'm going to make an O sound. Oh, I'm not doing this. Oh. I'm calling the O up from inside of me. So I'm actually moving on a little bit from your question, and I'm going to invite you to see how this sound is for you. Everybody try it. And if you want it, you're all muted. Just try this next sound. Inhale. And on the exhale, oh, I can feel it in here, but I'm not just shaping it with my mouth. Oh. Oh. It's funny, I'm looking at my own mouth and it almost looks like I'm frowning, but there's an O in there. That's the O sound, which is very different from lunars. One of the things we work with in continuum is counterpoints, different frequencies, because you might not like one. Or we also work with layering, and by the end of today you're going to have a little, I'm going to highlight a little sequence you can do. And we like to layer those sequences several times, because every time you layer, you go to a different layer of your tissue and you wake up more of your fluidness. Any questions about the O sound? And I mean, there's some stuff about the breath of fire. Yep, the lunars, yep. I wasn't going to teach the breath of fire, but maybe we'll if we have a few minutes. Any questions about the O sounds? I know I shifted us. I want to make sure that we can play with another little sequence. Like this is 1-800 technical support. Did you get how to do the O sound? I usually don't follow the chat. I felt vibration. Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do, right down your spine. It's a pretty straightforward sound. I use it a lot with my clients. I find the O sound grounding and centering. I don't assume that's what it's going to do for you. I never assume for anybody else. But I have found it helpful because of that. And again, because I work with so many cultures and contexts and people who come to me because of their suffering and not necessarily not expecting to do this kind of work, there's often O's are familiar and comforting. Let me teach you another counterpoint to the O's, which is the E's. Very similar. I'm going to inhale, and on the exhale, E. I'm feeling it. So go ahead and try that. You're all muted. Just do a couple of your own E's. I like to call it the jazz bar smile. You know, you walk into a jazz bar and you kind of like, it's that E, that it's a soft smile. E, it's not a E, because some people do like over shape with their mouth. E, and if any of these sounds, if you don't like them, that's okay. You don't have to do them when we play with our little sequence. E. Now, I can't hear y'all, and that's okay, but I'm going to invite everybody, wherever you are, to do one O and then one E, and just kind of notice the difference in the sound and in your body. Just do one O and then one E. O. E. Sorry, I probably should have muted myself. I interfered with your... Any technical questions about how to do the O's or the E's? Because we're going to play with them now in our spine in a very simple little sequence that I use with a lot of my clients. The spine is the pathway of interoception, right? Like the vagus nerve, like chemosensory receptors in the blood. The spine is one of the most powerful pathways of interoception. What does that mean? We're listening to ourselves, right? It's the 80% of the information we know travels belly up. It's belly up, bottom up. I truly believe if we open and nourish our spine, we liberate our own voice. All the people I've worked with have had their voice oppressed, right? You're literally opening that pathway. The spine is also a spirit pathways in many sacred dance traditions. Haitian dance, belly dance. It's a sacred spirit, often travels the spine to connect to the human body. I call it a riparian buffer between spirit and humans. What does that mean? A riparian buffer? If you know ecology and agriculture, every place where water meets land, we are water and land, same composition, same percentage as the earth. Every place where water meets land has its own ecosystem that keeps the water from flooding the earth and keeps the earth from drowning the water, right? We've ruined most of them on planet Earth. That's why we have all the, hurricane damage, and the spine is a cosmic riparian buffer, right? It's our own ecosystem that connects us between spirit and our earth body. That's what I believe. So we're going to play with the spine. Any questions about E's or O's?
There's just one question in the chat about Elizabeth asking about tongue placement.
Oh, there's no specific instruction. Oh, E. My tongue's kind of hanging out, floating, but I would say wherever it's comfortable. The one thing I will say is if you put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, it's called, it blurs the sound, and we often blur sounds in continuum. Kind of, it blurs it, but mine's just kind of floating. Oh, getting gravelly voice. Oh, it's kind of there. Let it be comfortable. So here's the practice. So we're going to take a few minutes. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I wanted to give you at least 10 minutes with this. So one more thing, we always work with preparation. I like to say, because I spend a lot of time in Haiti in ceremony, 3 days of preparation for 1 day of ceremony, right? Preparation is so important, and it's what we don't have in trauma. The tissue work you did with the lunars, that internal work, is often how I prepare tissue. It literally opens your body up. So you've already done it, so we're not going to repeat it. But if you wanted to do a continuum dive, is what we call them, you could start with either the lunars spreading in your chest, or as much of your body as can tolerate, or and then lunar pools to address specific areas, and then do the sequence we're going to play with now, which is you're going to O in your spine. Now, I don't want to tell you which direction, so I'm going to say you can O from the center of your spine, thoracic area, and send the O filling your spine to not only to the top and bottom of your spine, but you can connect heaven and earth, right? Axis mundi. The spine is an axis mundi. You can connect heaven and earth. You can O from the base of your spine, like up if you want, or from the top of your spine down. I like to start in the center of my spine and just spread it in both directions. And it's the same thing. You're going to do as many O's as it takes. So somebody wrote that sometimes you start well and the sound muffles. It takes time. One of the powerful things about this is you're actually increasing your capacity for longer exhales, right? Which we know promotes vagal efficiency. It actually promotes vagal tone and all of that, like this long, slow exhales. So it's a practice. And the more you do continuum, the more your breath will have that ability, and the sound will sustain for longer. O's to fill your spine, top to bottom. And then do y'all know what the transverse processes are? Those lovely little bones that come off your spine. You've got your dragon scales that come off the back, but we've got the ones that are on the side of the spine. You're just going to grab, I don't mean it literally. Imagine a clump of your vertebra, 2 or 3 or 4. E, start the E's in the heart, the center of the vertebra, E, and let them spread through the transverse processes out through your ribs, your body, E. You can take them to the end of your body, or you can take them out a little farther. That's up to you. I work with people individually on that, right? So the O's can go to the top of your spine and the bottom of your spine, or you can send them beyond to heaven and earth. That's up to you. The E's, transverse heart, core of your vertebra out through your transverse processes, as far out as you can go, edge of your body or a little farther. And you just go back and forth. You do a series of O's and then a series of E's. So what might be nice is to fill your spine first and then go to the E's and then extend beyond your spine into the sky and the earth a little bit, and then do some more E's. That's the practice. Is that clear enough? We're going to practice it for about 7 to 8 minutes. So get in your nest, get comfortable. You can do it sitting. You can do it lying on your side. Lots of open attention. Oh, and then see what movements emerge, if any. You might go to your side and take a nap. You can be seated, side lying, or even laying on your back, just so you can find your spine. Okay. I'll call us back. I'm going to keep my sound on, O-ing and E-ing, so you can hear the that frequency. And just play. And if at any point you need to pause, rest, go back to the lunars if they're helpful. If at any point it becomes uncomfortable is what I mean. Take a moment before you start just to notice your spine and see how comfortable it is, and then start this sequence. Go at your own timing. Pause and do open attention when you need to. It's a self-referential practice. We're empowering ourselves to be our own facilitator, our own healer, our own therapist, our own wise one. And knowing that you're moving and I'm interrupting, we often move on the sounding. So even though open attention is when we pause and let our body respond, if you also move when you sound, that's totally fine. A lot of times when I sound, I start to move, and it just continues into the open attention. In other words, you don't have to sit perfectly still while you sound. Let your body be your guide. Om. I said, if you're suddenly moved to do a few lunars, go for it. Or just keep traveling between the O's and the E's. A little bit of open attention. Om. So wherever you are in this practice, begin to shift towards open attention, which is releasing. You're not doing the O's or the E's. You're letting your body be in that responsive place. Spend about a minute or so there, and then find your pause, which might be still or might not be. You might keep pulsing or moving, acknowledging this is a taste of a practice that, I mean, you can do it in 5 minutes, you can take 5 hours, 5 days. So important to let the movement that is sequencing through you, however tiny or big it is, to keep traveling until it is okay to pause it, right? Trauma is an interruption to our natural flow. Find a satisfactory, comfortable, yeah, okay, I can pause it here just long enough to close our class today. That's all we got to pause for. Honor your own flow, your own rhythm. I don't think I'm going to stop moving actually when we come together to close, because my spine is loving this. if I wasn't teaching, I would probably be in a downward dog. I can just tell, I would probably be, it would be, we call it downward facing octopus. I would be like more playing with that shape pushing off the earth, right? That's where this can go. It's really juicy. I'm just going to do it at my desk. So let's gather, because we've got a few more minutes. If you want to keep practicing, here's my suggestion. Create your nest. Take a baseline of where you're at. A baseline is just, we notice when we begin a practice and we compare when we end. No demand for change, no demand for change in this work. But it's helpful to notice. So I had you notice how you feel and your thoughts and your feelings before. You can take a baseline of your breath, baseline of your spine, whatever you want to just notice, baseline of your anxiety or your state. And then the practice is prepare the tissue with the lunars. So you begin with lunars. There's no number of lunars or amount of time. You just start doing the lunars. I suggest sitting or sit on a meditation cushion in your nest, or you can do them lying down. They're a little more expansive when you lie down, and you can fill your chest like we did in the beginning, and or do pulls in specific places. If you need more containment, keep the lunars small. Just maybe put them in a small place, or they can travel. Do some open attention. And then do the O and E sequence in the spine. Now, with a lot of my clients, I might structure it. I might say 3 O's and then 3 E's, right? It can be very structured. And I might even have them put their hands where they're doing the E's. And if it's okay, I might put my hands on them, right? I'm a psychotherapist, to be a massage therapist. Touch is so natural between humans, but we've got all these rules and regulations. But I might be like, okay, or I might show them, put your hand here and do the E's and do 3 E's and then spread them. It can be very structured. It can also be very flowy, because we're inviting our body to, as I said, I've said it over and over, to find our own natural rhythm, to restore the flow between our movement. So you can just riff, like I'm going to O as much as I want, open attention, E. You can structure it. And then you can go back. Do the lunars again, do the O's and E's in the spine, open attention. We often repeat it, layer it several times. It's also powerful if you're having a rough moment and you're in a public place, to do a few lunar pulls into the place you're feeling the stress or the anxiety, or just do a few lunars. I do them on airplanes all the time, because I travel a lot. Suddenly it's like, okay, I'm not so squished. So any last comments or questions? I know we're at time. I hope this has been helpful and interesting. Kinana Isa, you have your hand raised.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi.
Hi. Like your mom, I found it very hard to stand still, so I was moving all the time. But what I'm noticing more and more, especially with this practice, is that I'm feeling the vibration. They are very helpful, very helpful. That's inner support. At the same time, I find it hard to have all my parts enjoying together. I feel like I'm here feeling good, then something is more contracted down.
Yeah. And that's awareness, right? The more we connect to our body in any way, the more we've suddenly noticed, oh my goodness, this is tight. It's possible that it tightened up in response to something softening, right? That can happen. Oh, wait a minute, I better hold on down here. Or that it was already tight and that the softening someplace. What I would say is that might be a place to put the lunar pools, But also I'll say E's are fantastic for breaking up scar tissue and blockages. And if you need to go, please go. So a lot of times when I get to a stuck place, I'll put my hands on there and send E's. I personally, I'm going to out myself. All teachers have sounds we love and are good at. I don't love the E's. I don't know why, but they're so helpful for tightness.
Yeah.
because they spread the fascia. You can also spiral them in the muscle body. So, you know, go to that place, and then that place might be like, oh, it's too soon. I don't want to do any work here. That's okay.
And you
Right?
know, there's an opportunity being in a master class, restructuring different O's and E's and in different ways, and see how we can connect our parts through them. Thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you. Okay, so Zoom user, your name's not there. Okay, we'll do, and then Grace.
Hi. Oh,
Hi.
can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
I just wondered, with the O's and the E's, does subaudible work then? I mean, if you're in the airplane doing O's and E's, you just do it silently, like?
Well, you could. I mean, like I said, the reason I do lunars is because you can't hear them. Now, I will share that I once had a really obnoxious person on a plane next to me. Like, I'm not going to tell the whole story because of time. And I started sending O's out into the plane, and it shut him up. He called the flight attendant over twice. I'm a little bit bold that way, but it was just like, it was really, I mean, he was not, he was starting to pick on me because he saw my passport, right? Trying to get into a political fight. And I just started going, oh, call the flight attendant. She's like, what are you doing? He's like, she's doing something weird. I said, I'm just making O sounds. I'm calming my nervous system. I'm scared of flying. She wasn't going to stop me.
So if it's different, if it's audible or subaudible, it's a different thing, right?
Well, if you imagine you're owing, you're not going to get the same frequency. However, we talked about imagination in the beginning, and imagination is powerful. It's a bridge between what is and what's possible, right? It's the path to magic. So I would say, imagine the O's. I'm sure it'll do something.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Grace.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to speak to all the ruminators out there, and I'm fantastic at that. And so I did notice when I started to do the layering, I got warm a lot and yawned some, and I took a natural break, and I was all and focused. Hello, focused. Not ruminating. Now I went away to the event that's happening, and I was able to bring myself back and refocus. So for ruminators, and you all know who you are, like that's really key to be able to come back and concentrate on that.
Yeah,
so that was
beautiful.
Great.
Yep. Yeah, I feel like there's, I mean, honestly, I mean, I hope this little taste, you know, and this is a practice some people go, that was kind of interesting, never again. But if you're interested, check it out. Check out the Continuum Teachers Association. There's no one way to do this. There's so many ways to practice this. So many ways. Yeah. Okay. I think Kira had to go. Her fire alarms are being tested. Okay. So I thank you all. You know, I welcome questions.
Sorry, Elizabeth, I'm still here. I just can't. The fire alarms are going off, so I just can't come on to close the session just in case. I don't want to blast everyone.
Right.
So I just wanted to say goodbye there.
Yeah.
And but we are at time, so feel free to close the session for us. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I will. And I'm so sorry about the phone. Truly, that hasn't rang for 7 years. And I don't know what happened today. So thank you, Kira, so much for holding the space. Thank you all. My website is ambergray.com. If you have questions, you can reach me that way. Yeah. And I hope the O's and the E's and the lunars and yeah, you know, support some shifting and reshaping. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Amber. Thank you, everyone.
You. Bye.